Hey, it's Tony here, and today I'm going to show you a short video of processing some images from the Seestar S50 Smart Telescope. And I captured these images using the N.I.N.A capture software because I wanted about 20 mosaics that I could tile together for this object, which in this case is NGC 7000, which is the North America Nebula, which is a pretty large nebula in the sky. So let's get started and I'll show you some of the steps that we went through. I've already got the image is opened up in Siril, and this is a result of running a script that aligned and stacked the different tiles from the FITS files that were captured in N.I.N.A. And if I show you the script real quick here, just go over and right click. You can see, hopefully you can see, let's just maybe expand this a little bit. So basically, I had darks images that were taken from the Seestar, and that's because when you capture with the N.I.N.A software, as opposed to the built-in Seestar phone app, you darks have to be captured separately. When you're using the phone app, the Seestar software integrates the dark images with the files that you're capturing. And so, as a reminder, what darks images are is they essentially capture some of the noise that's inherent in the imaging chip in the Seestar at a certain temperature. So again, because I use N.I.N.A, I have to capture these darks separately and then integrate them in the processing in Siril. So that's what this script is doing. And if I go down here, you can see that it converts the darks, integrates them, and puts them into a calibrated dark file. And then as I go further down the script, essentially what I'm doing is I'm calibrating the lights images and the darks images together. And then essentially, as we get down to this stacking part here, what the script is doing is it's normalizing the different tiles so that you don't get kind of like a weird border between the tiles. They're all got a very similar background level. And then because I used a darks capture, we use a feature in Siril that can kind of account for using those darks images. And the reason I say that up here in the script is this -opt. That's because when I captured my darks files, the Seestar imaging chip may be at a slightly different temperature than when I actually captured the image files of the nebula, if that kind of makes sense. So we use software to try and account for that. So that's the script that ran. And then this is the resulting images. And in Siril, right now, I'm in the linear view. So that's why everything looks completely dark. If I go into the auto stretch view, you'll see that there's the stacked image with all the tiles aligned together. And there's a nice view of the North American nebula. And then, of course, you may look at this and go, wait a minute, this has got a pretty hefty green stain to it. And so that's basically when N.I.N.A captures the images, the Bayer pattern, which represents the red-green colors on the Seestar S50 imaging chip, may be slightly misrepresented and captured by N.I.N.A, but we fix this in Siril as follows. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go in and I'm going to crop the image because we've got these weird things from the tiles overlapping or not overlapping right on the edges. So I'm going to use my left mouse button. I'm going to drag, and then I'm going to click on the right mouse button in Windows, click on crop and crop. That's how we kind of remove that border. The next thing I want to do is I want to do a background correction. What that means is if in the sky background, if you've got a uneven black layer, so maybe when I took the image, maybe over here on the left, there may be a street light that would have kind of slightly illuminated the sky on this side versus this side. I don't see it in this image, but we'll go ahead and do this background correction. So I go to Scripts, Siril Scripts, and I'm going to use, in the processing, I'm going to use the GraXpert Python script. So run the script, and it will bring up a dialog. And then I'm going to select background extraction. I'm going to leave all the defaults and then click on apply. And it just takes just a few seconds, and you see straight away, now the coloring is getting recovered in the image. So I'm going to minimize this. All right, so the next thing that we want to do is do a plate solve. And this basically tells Siril information about the image that we're looking at. So Siril can understand some of the capture parameters, the exact object that we're processing. So we're going to go to basically Tools, Astrometry, Image Plate Solver, and that brings up a dialog. And I'm just going to go ahead and just click OK. And you see there straight away that the information was saved about this image. And then the last thing we want to do is go ahead and let's do a color calibration. So we go into Image Processing, Color Calibration, and we're going to choose the Spectrophotometric Color Calibration. And basically going to go ahead and select the image parameters. So we had in the sensor, we had the Seestar S50, and we did use the light pollution filter for this imaging. So we select those, and then we will click OK. And it's gone ahead and finished the processing for the color calibration. Now, if I zoom in a little bit on this image, I'll use my mouse wheel in Windows, and then I'm going to hold down the control button and drag. I'm going to try and sharpen up this image a little bit to try and bring out some of these details here. And to do that, we're going to use another script. So go to Scripts, Python Scripts, and Processing, and we're going to select Cosmic Clarity. So I'm going to go ahead and run the script, and it will also bring up a dialog box. And we're going to go ahead and we are going to do a sharpening process. And so I'm going to select non-stellar and then leave all these settings basically at default. I may have increased this one a little bit here, but we'll leave it at this for the time being. I'm going to click on Run. And it takes a few seconds for it to complete its processing. And I've got a pretty powerful desktop computer, so that can help when we do some of this processing here. So it's doing, you see the progress bar here, and then it's almost completed, and yep, complete. So let's go ahead and minimize that. Now, if I do a before, you see the image is a little bit soft, and then I do a post sharpening. So we've brought out some of the details, but we've also increased some of this noise here in the background. So the next thing I want to do is do a noise reduction. So I'm going to go to Scripts, Python Scripts, Processing, and GraXpert again. Run the script. And this time in GraXpert, I'm going to use denoising, and I may increase this strength up to about 75 because the noise is pretty bad in my mind. So click on Apply. Now, this process is also leveraging AI, and it can take about, on my desktop computer, can take about a minute for it to complete. And so while it's doing that, you see here it's progressing at about looks to me about 1% every second. So it's got about another 50 seconds or so for it to complete. But once it's done that, we can then move over to the next stages of the processing of the North America Nebula. So the denoising is almost completed. There we go, process complete. Let's minimize this. And then let's also do a before And so you see some of the noise there in the image, and then let's do an after. So it's definitely done, at least in my eyes, a fairly good job of reducing some of the noise. And if we zoom out a bit using the mouse wheel, you can see the image is starting to look quite nice. So I've been in auto stretch view this whole time. And so I'm now going to go into linear view. And this is basically, we get ready now as we do some stretching of the image. So we definitely are going to change some of the contrast and brightness of the image. And so that's the stretching mechanism or stretching process steps now. So we go to scripts, Python scripts, and we're going to go down to VeraLux and do a hypermetric stretch. And so if I bring over the dialog here and let's select live preview, and I'm going to select the defaults, and then I'm going to select up here the sensor. So again, I'm going to select the sensor, the Seestar S50. I'm going to click on Auto Calc, and you can see there the image is looking pretty good with these default settings. I'm just going to go ahead and click on Process. And now it's completed, and close that dialog. So now some people might do the step of early on before this stretch process to do a star removal. But for this particular image, to my eyes, I kind of like the stars remaining as they are in place. And so we did a stretch. And now the next thing we can do is go into another script, which is Python scripts, also VeraLux. And there's a tool or script here called Revela. And it kind of emphasizes or optimizes some of the contrast in the image. So if I use my mouse wheel to zoom in and then drag with the left mouse button, I'm going to increase the texture here about halfway and the structure about a quarter of the way. So we'll let this script do its magic. And definitely it's emphasized straight away. I saw that. I'm going to hold down the space bar. So you see before, release the space bar, and after. So it's done a pretty nice job. And we'll click on Process. And then it's completed. And so that's pretty much it for processing in Siril. And you can certainly do other things. But the next stage I'm going to show you is I'm going to use Photoshop. And so I'm going to save this image as a TIFF file. And I'm going to save it as a 16-bit TIFF file because that's what Photoshop will use. So click on that, save it. Now, I'm using Photoshop. That's only because I happen to have a subscription to Creative Cloud. There's nothing to stop you using GIMP or Affinity, which are no-cost options, to also do some of these steps. So let's go ahead and we will minimize this. And I've already got Photoshop open. I'm going to drag that image over, the TIFF image, into Photoshop. And then a few things I like to do. So if I go up to the histogram here, you could, if you wanted to, reduce the black points in the image. And to do that, you go to Image, Adjustments, and Levels. You could also do these steps by any means in Siril as well if you wanted to. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to do it by color. So red first. And I'm going to see that curve on the right-hand side. Shift it just a little tiny bit. Same for green. Make sure those things are aligned. And then the last for the blue to try and align that as well. And then click OK. And then what I'm going to do next is go into Filter and the Camera Raw filter in Photoshop. This allows me, if I zoom in just a little bit, zoom back out, zoom in, there we go, to adjust the saturation. So if I take the saturation up all the way over, that's kind of a bit oversaturated to my eyes. So let's back off a little bit. Let's take it around 25 points. And then the other thing you can do is the vibrance setting. If I go all the way to the right, you can see the richness of the colors kind of just look a bit unnatural. So I'm just going to back that off, and we'll make it about, say, make it about 10 or 12. There we go. And then the last thing, there's a clarity setting. And if I move this all the way to the right, you see what it does? It kind of really increases the contrast, almost so that it's now unnatural looking. So I'm just going to back that off and make this to about 5 or 6. So we'll leave it around there. Click on OK. So you see there, the colors have appeared. If I use my mouse wheel to zoom in, and I hold down the space bar in Photoshop and left mouse button, and kind of drag around the image. And there's some nice details have appeared. Some may argue I've kind of oversaturated a little bit, but to my eyes, I kind of like the look of it. If I do Control 0 now in Photoshop, that kind of zooms out to 100%. So there you have it, is processing the North America nebula by capturing multiple tiles in Seestar, using N.I.N.A for that, and then bringing all that together in Siril using a script to align and stack the images and bring the tiles together, normalize the tiles so there's no kind of weird bordering between the tiles, and then also bringing in a darks correction as well from the Seestar images that were captured with N.I.N.A. So thank you for your time. Appreciate it. And like this and subscribe if you get time. Thank you.